Hello, I'm Stephan Schwartz, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Schwartz Report. This week, I want to talk about something that people talk about in generalities, but we don't really put it in a context that reveals how distorted it is in the United States. And I'm speaking here about police violence and death in the United States. Now look at this first slide, and you can see how really aberrant, how unique the murder rate by police in the United States is compared to other countries. I mean, look at this. The United States is so far out that it's orders of magnitude compared to other countries. You get down to countries like Norway, Iceland, Japan, there's almost no police death. In fact, there is no other country that is even remotely like the United States. And the question is, why is that? And I think there is an answer, and it's a fixable answer, or that is, it's a fixable problem. We know what's wrong, I think. We just choose not to do anything about it. And the answer is, as Rutgers University discovered when they did a great deal of research on this, the police in the US deal with more diverse, distressed, and aggrieved populations than most other countries. And certainly we have more guns. But the real problem is that American police only get an average of about 5 months of classroom training. It's the briefest among the 18 countries examined in the Rutgers University study. 18 countries studied, and the United States, which has the highest death rate by orders of magnitude, trains its police the least of any other country. Let me give you some examples. Look at this slide. Norway requires 3 years of training to become a police officer. Between 2002 and 2016, they had 4 fatalities caused by the police. Finland, 3 years degree is required to become a police officer. 7 people were killed by police between 2000 and 2018. Germany, 2 years of training to become a police officer. And notice 267 people have died by police shootings since 1990 to the present day. So, a little less training, a little more killing. The United States, you need a high school diploma and approximately 21 weeks. And in 2019, 1,004 people were killed. Now, it ought to be pretty obvious that the correlation is greater training, lower death. So why don't we get that? Why aren't we passing training rules or laws that in order to become a policeman, police person, officer, you need to get at least 2 or 3 years of training, not a few weeks. Because when you look at this and you actually look at the statistics of what's going on in the United States, you can see several things. One is that more and more people get killed every year. 2017, 981. 2023, 1,163. There have been 178 so far this year. And I got this is from Statista, and I got this a couple of weeks ago when I started doing research on this podcast. So the number may be even higher than this 178 today. But when you climb into the numbers, you also see something very revealing. Black Americans are killed at a much higher rate than white Americans. There's very significant racism. Now you see the chart. 6.1 per million per year, blacks. Hispanics, 2.7 per million per year. White, non-Hispanic, 2.4 million per year. So if you're a black person in the United States, you're particularly, as I'm going to show you, a male, you are in much greater risk than if you are a white person of the same age. And the other thing that really stands out when you climb into these statistics, and by the way, they're not easy to get. Digging this stuff out is not easy because there's no real focus on doing it. There's nothing going on in the Congress, for instance, or the state legislatures that really drives an interest in collecting accurate data. So it took a lot to dig all this out. But one of the things you see in these high death rate is that more than half of the people shot and killed by police are between 20 and 40 years old. So it's mostly young black people. Young people in general, young people, but specifically and most prevalently, Black or Latinos. But it's even worse than that when you climb into it. The US data, according to the University of Illinois in Chicago, is that 15% of civilians who experience police threat of or use force during a legal intervention end up getting injured. And this number, I found it hard to believe, but the University of Illinois did some very careful work on this, and this is what they came up with. 250,000 people, it's estimated, civilians, are injured in some way by law enforcement officers every year. So you don't really want to have an interaction with the police if it's at all avoidable, because with that kind of number, you stand a chance of getting hurt. Now, if you talk to people about this, what you hear over and over again is, well, it's very dangerous to be a policeman. So I asked that question, is it really that dangerous to be a policeman? And here's what I found. There were 11 fewer officer deaths in 2022 than in 2021. Officer deaths have increased since 1996, which was when the FBI first began collecting data. However, there were fewer officers killed in 2022 than in 1997. So yes, police do get killed in the course of doing their duty, but the number has been going down, and it's actually not ever that high. And then I discovered something else. The number of felonious and accidental police officer deaths in 22 were nearly equal. That is, you're almost as likely to have an accidental injury or get killed as you are getting killed in the line of duty against someone. There were more accidental police officer deaths in 2022 than in any year since 2011. And you can see the chart. And in fact, it gets even clearer than that when you dig in, because what I discovered when I was doing the preparation for this podcast, because I was so concerned about the number of people being killed by the police, and when I talked to people about it, they kept saying to me, oh, but it's very dangerous to be a policeman. The fact is, police aren't even in the top 10 most dangerous jobs. The most dangerous job in the United States is a logging worker. Roofers have a higher fatality rate than police. Fishing and hunting workers. Think about this. Agricultural workers. The police are not even in the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the United States. So the problem we've got is we don't train the police enough. They tend to be too violent because of that lack of training, I think, and because there are people who want to be police so that they can be in authority and carry a gun. And that all has to get trained out, because as a result of our short training periods, we have this terrific death rate that is higher than any other country. This could be resolved by increasing the training to 2 or 3 years instead of a few weeks. And we can do this. It's entirely doable. What it does is require state, local, and federal politicians to pass the kind of laws and regulations that would produce the kind of training that you would get in most other countries. 2 or 3 years, you'd be a different person than a few weeks. So what can we do? And the answer is, when you go to the city council, when you go to any kind of state meeting, when some politician comes to talk to you, you say to them, we have this huge police death rate from police killings, shootings, and it's happening largely because the police do not get the training that they would get in other countries. You need to change the laws and regulations so that the people you select are not predisposed to violence, and they get enough training that they know how to behave. And it is a fact that has been proven in other countries. There's no question about this. We need to get a police system which does not kill or injure so many Americans, and that is not so racist. Straightforward. The facts are clear. It's up to us to demand that things change. Thank you.